Semicolon, the super comma. As you can see here, a semicolon is the keeper of peace and sanity, the friend of all and the foe of grammar confusion. A super comma or a semicolon literally is your best friend. Now, as you've noticed, as we've been going through the units in Gravana, you've learned that there are a variety of sentence structures that can be utilized to create meaning. There, in the dependent and independent clause unit and the fanboys unit, we've discussed how important it is to combine ideas in order to guide our reader to what we're thinking. So instead of saying the dog ran, what kind of dog was it, and what did the do following that? The usage of the semicolon protects our writing from comma errors. If we are unsure about how to best connect these two sentences, use a semicolon, and you won't have a problem. Rules and usage. As many of you probably have used in text messages, you created the winky faces. Many people have explained it to me, but most people don't have a clue about how to use it or even know what it is. It's very easy to use, and it solves a lot of the headaches that people have. Here are the 4 ways that you can use a semicolon. You have linking to related complete sentences, such as like the dog ran, the dog jumped. Lists, which we'll be talking about, such as like Sioux Falls, South Dakota, Watertown, South Dakota. Adverbial conjunctions, which we use our hot shot cat words with, which is very similar to the fanboys. And fanboys confusion, which we will discuss coming up. So, the first one, as was said, is linking to sentences. It's very similar to the way that a fanboys sentence, which is combining 2 or more complete sentences, but they're related in content. So I want you to look at sentence 1 here. Okay? The student went to the circus. We've been learning that the most important things is to identify our subject, which is the student, who or what is the whole sentence about, and what did they do. Remember, it could be a helping verb, such like can, run, or it could be a linking verb, such as like is. Our sentence 2, this is an example of a dependent clause sentence. DC, IC starts with a dependent clause word. Well, at the circus, he saw a rebellious elephant. He is the subject there, and the verb is saw. Following the normal rules, we double check. We can combine these 2 sentences by just simply changing this period here to a semicolon. It may seem really that hard, but it's not. Here's the answer. The students went to the circus. Well, at the circus, comma, he saw a rebellious elephant. Instead, it just adds a lot more to it, and we don't have to worry about, well, did I put the comma before the fanboy, or was it afterwards? Oh, can I really combine these? Super comma shows up and just takes care of it for us. So here are some more examples. If you want to get super fancy, you could use a dependent DC, IC or an IC DC combination followed by a semicolon. You could add 2 dependent clause sentences together. But the most important steps for linking with a semicolon are the following. Make sure that both sentences contain at least 1 independent clause. They have to be able to stand on their own, just like the adults. Make sure that the content is related. It doesn't make sense if you go, the dog ran, my mom's name is Amy. Doesn't make sense. And then just simply place the semicolon between the 2. So that was rule 1, linking sentences that are related in content. The second one, if you're following along, is clarifying lists. Now, when you are sending an email, this is something that it uses. Okay, it's to break up a list so that it addresses multiple items. Look at the following example. I went to Duluth, Minnesota, Chicago, Illinois, Detroit, Michigan, and New York City, New York. That's the end of the sentence. If I was to leave it that way, it would seem like I went to a variety of different places. I went to Duluth, then I went to Minnesota, then I went to Chicago, then I went to Illinois, then I went to Detroit, Rock City, Michigan, and then New York City, and then New York. Look at this other example. My teachers are the following. Mr. Hartzler, ELA. Who is that? I don't know. Mr. Holman, Social Studies. What is that? Mr. Hagg, PE. Who is that? And Mrs. Hofer, Math. If we were to leave it this way, it looks like we have, and I'll get my little pen here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you get the hint here. 5, 6, 7, 8 different teachers. When in reality I have 1, 2, 3, 4. It just adds a lot of confusion. So what we do is we just simply place a semicolon at the end of the pairing of what goes with what. So it's the same sentences, but now it really tells us where and who have. I went to Duluth, Minnesota. Notice that I put a comma here between the items because Duluth is a city in Minnesota. And then I put a semicolon here to show that this pairing, Duluth and Minnesota, go together. Okay? Chicago, and I put the comma again. Illinois, semicolon. Those two things go together. Detroit, comma, because we use the comma always goes first, and then a semicolon at the end. Okay, in New York, same thing with this. Here's my first grouping. That semicolon tells me, hey, look, this goes together. And this goes together. And this goes together. Okay? So the lists are really easy to see. Whereas before, as we noticed, looked like there was like 6 or, I think it was 8 down here, different things. Always, always, always remember that the comma goes first. It doesn't make sense if you put a semicolon here and then a comma there, because then it looks like it's Minnesota, Chicago. Okay, if you look at an email, when you're sending like an email to, I don't know, myself or Kelly or Amanda, it does that in between different people. It puts a semicolon because that's going together. So, once again, we've had our rules. We had linking two related sentences, and we've also talked about the listing. The third one, and this is probably one of the more challenging ones, but it's really cool if you can use it well, is adverbial conjunctions. As we've previously learned, the word conjunction means that we are going to be combining two independent clauses together. Remember, an independent clause can stand on its own. Just as before, we need to make sure that the two sentences can support themselves, that are independent. So I underline and circle the verbs. Each of the words of hotshot cat, which you'll see on the next page, mean a specific item. So here's the formula. I'm someone that really believes in telling people how to do things. Okay? So the cat is our subject, who or what it's about, and our verb is went. Okay? That's standing on its own. It peed on my towel in my backpack. It is who is what it's about, but they peed on it. And it really stunk. So we follow the formula. And this is how we can put it together. So we take our sentence one that we've checked to make sure that it can stand on its own, that it's an independent clause. So we could put the cat went to the bathroom. Now, I put a semicolon, just very similar to the linking part of it, and then I add a hotshot cat word, which is very similar like fanboys, where it's a word that combines two sentences, but then it needs a comma after it. So it's the opposite of a list where it goes comma, semicolon. This one goes semicolon, comma, and then sentence two. It peed on my towel and my backpack. So in this case, I chose however, which we'll talk about here in a second, as my hotshot cat. I put a semicolon there and I put a comma. Sometimes I've referred to them as lawyer words in the past. It really just makes what I feel much smarter and a little bit more intelligent to your reader. So here's the acronym. I'm all about them. It's been proven to help people remember them. I would encourage you to memorize it. Okay? So H is for however. O is for otherwise. T is for thus. And I'll explain what these mean on the next slide. S is similarly. H is hence. O is on the other hand. T is therefore. C consequently. A is also and T is then. Remember, I cannot stress this enough, that it goes semicolon, then our hotshot cat word, in this example, however, and then a comma, then the next subject, the beginning of the next sentence. Okay? So here's what these hotshot cat words mean. You probably may have never used many of them in your writing before. Okay? When you use H for however, it means nevertheless. So like, I went, let's see if I can write. I won't even write. Okay? O is otherwise, like alternatively. You could go to your room. Otherwise, you're going to do the work. T, therefore, for that reason. S, similarly, in the same way. H is hence, for that reason. O, on the other hand. So, like, I could go to the mall. On the other hand, I could go to my friend's house. T is thus. Thus is just a fancy way of saying because of this. C is consequently a result, and A is also, or in like an addition, and T is like is then, such as next. Okay, I cannot stress enough. Memorize this. Memorize this slide. Memorize. So we've had the 3 rules again. What were they? Linking, lists, and adverbial conjunctions. Very good. What does hotshot cat stand for? H is for however. O is for otherwise. T is thus. S is similarly. H is hence. O is on the other hand. T is therefore. C is consequently. A is also. And T is thus. Make sure that you know what they mean. The last rule that you use a semicolon is fanboy's confusion. And this is a confusing one. What we're trying to do is we're trying to create for the reader a very specific way that they can learn about what the sentence is actually asking about. Here's a good rule of thumb. If the sentence used 2 or more commas before the fanboy, you should probably put a semicolon before the fanboy. So for example, when I finish here, I'll be glad to help you, and that is a promise I will keep. In this one, I just used 1 comma, so DC, comma, IC, but I put the semicolon before and to show, hey, this is a dependent clause sentence and a fanboy at the end. Okay? Usually it goes with like appositives, which you've learned, DC, comma, IC, coordinating adjectives. Basically, any reason that you would use 2 commas if you said like a state or date. So here's the reasons why semicolons are so important. Okay? There are many reasons that the semicolon is important, but the main one is that it adds another tool to our writing toolbox. So when it comes time to write for any class or even just correspond with your grandmom over email, that you understand how to use it and how to best use it to express your thoughts. Likewise, there's a very small percentage of the population that actually knows how to use this tool. So it'll enable for you to have an edge on the competition. I cannot tell you how many people I know that my mom asked me just the other week and was like, how do you use a semicolon, Brad? And I was like, oh, let me tell you, Mom. My 7th graders know how. So here's practice 1. How would we link these 2 sentences using a semicolon? The sentences are, the ferocious pit bull bit at the construction worker's hand. Sentence 2, the dog turned out to be rather nice, but was afraid that he was there to hurt him. So first step for us is we need to find the subjects. Who or what is this whole thing about? So this one is the pit bull. And what did the pit bull do? He bit. Okay? So that's a complete sentence. Well, who or what is this about? The dog. Let's see. Turned out to be rather nice. Turned out is our subject. So, and this one actually has 2, so it has he, because they're using a fanboy here, and was there. Okay? Now, here's our answer. So we determined those. Now we have to determine, are they related in content? I'd say so. The dog tried to bite the constructor's hand, but they were actually pretty nice. So we put the semicolon between the 2 sentences, right here, hand, and we combine them. Look at how nice this looks. The ferocious pit bull bit at the construction worker's hand. The dog turned out to be rather nice, but was afraid that the worker was there to hurt him. Beautiful. Practice 2. How would you break up this list using a semicolon? The best rock musicians of today are Kurt Cobain of Nirvana, Dave Grohl, Foo Fighters, and Nirvana, Sean Danielson, Smile Empty Soul, and Aaron Lewis of Stained. So in this one, we don't need to check the subjects and verbs because this is one sentence. So we have to identify who these people are. So he goes with Nirvana. Dave Grohl, who's a fantastic musician, Foo Fighters and Nirvana. Sean Danielson and Smile Empty Soul and Aaron Lewis. Sometimes I do this when I'm thinking of this. I go, whoop, Nirvana, Smile Empty Soul. Remember that the comma goes first, so I would just keep that comma there where I drew a line because the semicolon. Become the semicolon. Becomes a semicolon. So that the answer looks like this. Okay? Practice 3. Combine these two sentences using an adverbial conjunction. Kobe Bryant is better than LeBron James because he is mentally tougher. LeBron is much more of an athlete because he can run like the wind and is 6'8". So what we need to decide again is check to make sure that these are sentences that can go on their own. So who or what is this about? Kobe Bryant. What's the verb? Is. He also has a dependent clause here. So this is a subject, he, and is. Who or what is this sentence about? LeBron. We check to see what the verb is. A verb is. It's functioning as a linking verb. Look, here it is. Again, because, one of our on a white bus words. He and can run. Okay? So then if you remember with adverbial conjunctions, has to go semicolon first. It's the opposite of a list, and then the comma. So look back to your hotshot cat, and which one would make sense? Okay? Okay, so in this one, I used on the other hand because I'm comparing Kobe Bryant to LeBron James. So look at this. I have my semicolon after the end of that last sentence, used one of my hotshot cat words as a conjunction, combining the two sentences, and I place the comma. So that the final answer says Kobe Bryant is better than LeBron James because he's mentally tougher. On the other hand, LeBron is much more of an athlete because he runs like the wind and is 6'8". Okay? So if you're having struggles with this, go back. I will tell you that the quiz and the writing prompt will more than likely ask for you to tell what hotshot cat is. So make sure you know it. Slowly take away each level and make sure you know what the words mean so you know how to use them. And the last one. Use a semicolon and commas correctly in the sentence below. When the ferocious, disgusting dog went to bite me, I fled, but I could not escape. So the first thing we need to do is find out where the commas should go. Okay, in this one, who or what is it about? The dog. And we have two words describing dog, ferocious and disgusting. So if we can fit and in between, when the ferocious and disgusting dog went to bite me. Okay, needs a comma there. Coordinating adjectives. I'm going to write it up there. C-A. Okay? I fled, but I could not escape. We have looking at the sentence, we saw that it starts with an on a white bus word, when. So that means there needs to be a comma before our next subject. Okay? Meaning that it's a DC, comma, IC. But we're still not done. I see my fanboys sentence, and I see a subject, and I see a verb, could not escape, meaning that we need a comma there. So look at this. We have 1, 2, 3 commas that we used in one sentence. I want to get rid of some of this confusion. So what I do is I place, and it's going to go here. Okay, I'll go back, is that you put the semicolon before the fanboy. So right here, saying, hey, it's a dependent clause before it. I think it looks fantastic. And I will tell you that your writing will improve so much because of this. Now, the next steps. I would encourage you, if you are a little bit fuzzy on some of those things, I realize it's been 20 minutes now. I would encourage you to go back. You may download the PowerPoint and go through it at your own pace, re-listen to things just like a YouTube video. Once you are done viewing this PowerPoint, you can begin working on your practice. Remember that you can reference this presentation and the handout if provided to help you on that. I would encourage you to really try and do your best on that. Remember, you have to score a 90% accuracy before you can test out of the concept and begin applying in your writing. Okay? If you have any questions of any kind, please contact me, your instructor, either Kelly Andrews or Amanda Olinger or Brad Hartzler at Gravana605 at gmail.com. We are here to help you, and I believe that with the use of the super comma, you will be that much better.